You're watching the Real Football Network. This is Real Football Analytics, and I'm John Pollard. Just coming off of the Monday night game of San Diego and Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh put a heavy dose of blitzes on Phillip Rivers, we thought we'd look into the numbers 5 weeks into the season to see how quarterbacks are performing against the blitz across the league and how team defensive units are blitzing opposing quarterbacks. We're going to take a look at the numbers, and right now, teams are on pace, defensive teams are on pace to blitz the opposing quarterbacks 21% of their total defensive plays. Let's take a look at the numbers in more detail. Now, what we're looking at first are the quarterbacks across the league for the first 5 weeks of the season, how they've performed against the blitz, ranked by quarterback rating. As you can see, we've also included the completion percentages, the attempts, the completions, the TDs, interceptions for all the quarterbacks, but again, they're being ranked by quarterback rating. A few highlights. First off, Tom Brady at the top of the heap with a 138.3 quarterback rating against the blitz. A resurgent Andy Dalton playing really well against the blitz, and I also think that's a byproduct of Hugh Jackson's offensive scheme, using quick passes to get the ball out of Andy Dalton's hand as quickly as possible with high efficiency throws in the short passing range. Last Monday night, we saw Phillip Rivers go against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers blitzed the heck out of Phillip. He did a masterful job diagnosing the blitz, audibling at the line, and doing the best he could to put his team in the position to win that game. Unfortunately, an incredible play at the end of the game cost the Chargers the game. But nevertheless, Phillip Rivers is one of the best at handling the blitz. Carson Palmer, he's at the top of this list for a couple of reasons. One, he's skilled quarterback. He's an experienced quarterback, but the offensive line for the Arizona Cardinals is giving Carson time to identify coverages, diagnose, and find the open receiver. Also wanted to point out Marcus Mariota. Here's the rookie. You can expect he's going to see some level of blitzes, and he is. He's at a 106.9 quarterback rating, doing really great for a rookie. Moving towards the bottom of the list, some interesting names. First off, I want to talk a bit about Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford at the very bottom in terms of quarterback rating when facing the blitz. Matthew's had a hard time a couple ways. He's not thrown the ball very well all season, but he's also playing against an offensive line that just has not played well day in, day out through the first 5 weeks of the season. Ryan Tannehill, the Dolphins' struggles offensively certainly could be correlated to Ryan's struggles against the blitz. Joe Flacco, one of the guys that's done well against the blitz over the last 4 or 5 years, having a real challenge this year diagnosing the blitz and getting the ball out of his hands to his receivers. Amazing to me to see Drew Brees at the bottom of the list. Drew Brees being a skilled quarterback with multiple years of experience. These are the types of guys you expect to see at the top of the list, and you can see Peyton Manning there as well. They're down at the bottom of the list. Peyton Manning, he's faced almost the highest number of blitzes of any quarterback in the league this year. Teams are figuring out to get Peyton off his game. Do not give him time to identify coverages and find the open receiver. Final thing I wanted to talk about, if you reference this list, look at Nick Foles and Sam Bradford. Nick Foles at the top in the top 10, handling the blitz from a quarterbacking perspective, and Sam Bradford near the bottom of the list in terms of quarterback rating against the blitz. Do you think the Eagles might be rethinking that trade now? Now we're moving over to the defensive side of the ball, and we're looking at the teams here in the NFL ranked by the number of defensive plays that they've run a blitz. And as you can see, the St. Louis Rams are at the top of the heap with 108 blitz plays so far year to date through the first 5 weeks of the season. This isn't necessarily surprising. One, it's a Jeff Fisher coach team, but also the defensive coordinator for the St. Louis Rams, Greg Williams, famous for his innovative blitzes and also his high-frequency blitzes. Also interesting to see that the Arizona Cardinals are second in the league with 101 blitz plays year to date. Even though Todd Bowles, their defensive coordinator from 2014, has moved to the Jets, the Arizona Cardinals have maintained their position as one of the top blitzing teams in the league in terms of frequency. Speaking of Todd Bowles, we move down the rankings a bit. You see the New York Jets. The Jets are one of the highest frequency blitzing teams in the league. They also have a high impact percentage. We'll get to that in a minute. But Todd Bowles has taken his defensive scheme, and with the talent he has with the Jets, has maintained that blitz intensity. Also interesting for us to see Wade Phillips, the new defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, one of the best defensive units in the league. Wade is known for his unique blitzing capabilities as well, and that defense that he sets up hides the blitz very well against opposing offenses. Not surprising to see the Denver Broncos at the top of the list in terms of high blitzing frequency. Moving down to the bottom of the rankings, let's talk about a couple of things. One of the best defenses in the league, the Washington Redskins, they don't implement the blitz very often. Only 33 defensive plays through the first 5 weeks of the season has Washington actually blitzed. Also, the New England Patriots, another well-performing defensive unit. And with a Bill Belichick-led team, people tend to think, well, maybe that means a lot of blitzing. As we know, the Patriots are better than anybody at utilizing the talent on their roster to the best of their ability and putting them in a position to be effective. The Patriots are at the bottom of the list in terms of blitz frequency. If you look to the right, they also have a high blitz impact. Again, we'll talk about blitz impact in just a moment. One other team we wanted to point out at the bottom of the list, the Atlanta Falcons. With Coach Quinn coming over from Seattle, people probably thought, well, Atlanta's doing well and they're probably going to blitz a lot. It's really not about that for the Atlanta Falcons. It's about the scheme. And Coach Quinn has implemented a scheme that uses his personnel to its optimal capabilities, and it doesn't require the blitz. Also, looking at the Falcons, they have a low blitz impact. We'll talk about that. This is a team that recognizes that we're not very effective. We don't have the talent to blitz, so I'm going to put my players in a position to sit back and try to create turnovers through scheme against opposing teams. All right, now we're moving on to another way to look at the blitz scheme for defensive teams. Now the teams in the league are ranked by impact percentage when blitzing. What we mean by impact percentage. We monitor every single defensive play for all the teams across the league each and every week, and we identify the blitz. Then we find out if that blitz either created a quarterback pressure, a sack, a tackle for loss, or a turnover. And then that creates an equation that allows us to see a percentage. And as we can see at the top, some highlights. The New England Patriots, we talked about them being one of the least blitzing teams in the league, but their impact percentage is top. That means the scheme that they're setting up is they take advantage of opportunities to blitz, which, if you can imagine, has got to be confusing for opposing offensive coordinators and quarterbacks. Low frequency, high impact. Moving down the list a little bit, the New York Jets, a different type of ratio. High frequency, high impact. The talent on the defensive roster for the New York Jets is unheralded. It's incredible, both in the front seven and the defensive backfield. That allows them to blitz a lot, and they certainly do, but they're also getting to the quarterback and causing turnovers with that personnel. The Denver Broncos, we talked about Wade Phillips when we talked about blitz count. Another high-frequency blitzing team with high impact. In this case, we're talking about teams that make sense to blitz a lot because they're being effective in implementing it. As we move down the list a bit, we want to talk about teams that have a high frequency but low impact. The St. Louis Rams, the highest blitzing defensive team in the league through the first 5 weeks of the season, they only have an impact percentage of 34.3. This is interesting. Greg Williams keeps the intensity on, keeps the pressure on opposing quarterbacks. He's not necessarily concerned about the impact percentage. I don't see the St. Louis Rams changing their ways anytime soon, at least under Jeff Fisher and with Greg Williams at the defensive coordinator position. Another high-frequency, low-impact team, the Green Bay Packers. They have a 33.7% blitz impact percentage. And moving down to the bottom of the list, a few highlights. At the very bottom, we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills. A Rex Ryan-led defense, a high-frequency, even lower impact. Only 25% of the time when the Buffalo Bills blitz are they effective. What that means inside the numbers, there's potential explosive plays for an offense. If a quarterback can identify and diagnose a potential blitz coming from the Bills, perhaps a big run or pass is in front of them. The Atlanta Falcons, we talked about the intelligence of Coach Quinn and what he's implemented at Atlanta. We have a low frequency, low impact. This is a team that understands that we are not effective right now in terms of getting to the quarterback, so we do not blitz where we're not effective. The Houston Texans also, it stood out to us that they're a high-frequency team and low impact. With the defensive personnel that they have, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney being just two individuals we'll speak about, they're only getting to the quarterback or creating any type of impact with the blitz less than 30% of the time. We'll keep track of these numbers as the season progresses, and we'll update you accordingly. A few contests going into Week 6 that stood out to us where we see potential mismatches. Tom Brady visiting the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are a high blitzing team, and as we saw in our review of the quarterback's performance numbers against the blitz, Tom Brady ranks at the top of the stack. Also, the Buffalo Bills, a high blitzing team, playing against a resurgent Andy Dalton, who's played very well against the blitz season to date. With another mismatches for a quarterback, we've got Colin Kaepernick going against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens blitz a lot, and Colin Kaepernick's really struggled against the blitz this year. Think about that when you're setting up your fantasy lineups. For Real Football Analytics, I'm John Pollard.